thank you all very much for coming. As Ian just said, I think this might be our biggest AGM ever, and it is of course our first AGM in the digital world. So I hope you're all surviving well in these unusual times. We are recording the AGM, and I hope for us to be able to find a way of putting this online once we're done and out of the way. So you're all muted now. So we can ask you to unmute yourselves, but you actually will have to do that yourselves when it comes to speaking a bit later on. So we're doing our AGM digitally, and so a quick word about voting. It's 1 vote per member. So if there are 2 memberships in your house and you both wish to vote, you will each need a separate device to vote. And we welcome anyone here who isn't a member of the support group. It's good to see you. When we're getting to voting, those people aren't able to vote, but if voting is important to you, then maybe you should think about becoming a member. The votes will come up as polls on your screens. You will have 4 options for voting: yes, no, abstain, and can't vote. You can make your selection. So our constitution says that votes are taken by majority. So the important check for us is whether the number of yeses is bigger than the number of noes. So abstains and can't votes are not included in the counting. So we're relying on everyone to be honest with their voting. If you've got any burning questions which come up, then please use the chat pane to ask them, and we'll pick them up at the end of the meeting. So without further ado, let's go. There we are. So we have received a number of apologies from members who are unable to attend. I'm not going to read those out now, but we will pop them in the minutes of the meeting. So now it is time to try out our voting with the first poll. So you've all had the opportunity to read the minutes of the 2019 AGM on the website. It is a simple question. Do you accept the minutes of the 2019 AGM? So you should now see the vote is on screen, and you click to vote, and there we go. I can see the votes are coming in. Lovely, we're doing very well with that. We'll just leave it a little bit longer so that everyone has a chance to click and vote. What have we got? We've now got 54 out of 60 votes in, so I think that is good enough. Do you want to share the results with us, Rachel? So you can now see that we have 89% saying yes, they accept the minutes, and we've got a few people abstaining. So there we are. The minutes have been accepted. And that is how the voting is going to work as we go through the day. So let's now, is that disappearing? Click, okay. So now it's time to go on to the reports. I'm first. So we've been doing our usual activities throughout the year. We've been welcoming new members to the group. We've been having meetings, although obviously not for the last few months. We've been looking at member grants and researcher grants. We've had a couple of newsletters out. We've been keeping our presence up on the website and with social media. Some of us have been attending various HSP and rare disease meetings. We've had some new activities this year. You're obviously here today in our first digital meeting, and it's great that you're here today. We've had the bequest from David Pierce. We've been sorting out our committee structure, and we've got a new website. And of course, the usual story, we need some help to help run the group. I'm going to come on to each of those things a little bit later. I've got some thank yous, of course. I'd like to thank all of you members. Without you, we wouldn't be here helping you. I'd really like to thank the volunteers. There are many people that volunteer from the group doing all sorts of things, and their valuable time makes this group work. So thank you to them. I'd like to thank fundraisers. There are plenty of activities going on that raise funds and awareness for the group. It's all amazing. Thank you very much. And I'd also thank the researchers. The work that they do into HSP gives us hope to look at things that can be better in the future. And I'd also just like to add a quick thank you to Rachel, who's behind the scenes helping us with the AGM in the digital world today. So it would be remiss of me not to mention coronavirus. Obviously, we had various bits and bobs at the start and the decision to stop our face-to-face meetings. We've had a number of virtual meetings using Zoom just as a way of getting towards where we are now, and it allows us to have meetings without going home. So we're able to do this because there are some clauses in the Constitution which we voted in 2018. When us trustees were discussing the Constitution changes, we considered taking those clauses out, and I'm very glad that we didn't. So these digital meetings make us much more accessible. It's a shame that we lose the face-to-face interactions and the conversations with individuals, but we've got people from all over the country here today, including some that have never been to an AGM. And you don't need to leave the room that you're in. It removes all the transportation issues and it helps minimize fatigue concerns. But I do realize that the technology might be a barrier for some. We're not the only people doing digital meetings. The American group, the Spastic Paraplegia Foundation, had their AGM online last week, and you can go onto their website and have a look at their meeting already. Conferences are heading that way too. The European Reference Network are running a series of webinars, and there are a couple with relevance to HSP coming up soon. And now that the coronavirus restrictions are lifting, we can start planning and moving forwards with getting our own face-to-face meetings going on. So, talking of meetings, Mike Kane and I have been attending a few meetings throughout the year. Mike went to the House of Commons in London and the Rare Disease Showcase in Manchester. I went to the SPATAX conference in Nice in France and the Euro HSP meeting in Vienna in Austria. And you can read about all of these in the January 2020 news link. There are a couple more that need to be reported soon. Mike went to the ECRD conference in June, and I have been attending some meetings about the Physical Activities in Rare Conditions project, which will come up later. Now, talking about online things, we've got our new website live. So Jenny Preston volunteered her time to get our amazing new website up and running, and I encourage you all to go and have a play with it. If you think there's something missing, then just let us know. Perhaps you could write it for us. That would be wonderful. Whilst we're in the digital world, it's worth a mention of our social media presence. I've been working on increasing our presence on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. It would be great if you wanted to follow us on these platforms and share the word about our group further afield. Also, next time you go and see your specialists, why don't you ask them if they could follow us on LinkedIn? Another side on specialists is we're trying to make sure that the specialists that treat you know about us. Some of you may remember a short question I asked on the Facebook groups a few months ago. We used this to analyse the data, and Mitesh has been writing to the identified neurologists and asking if they would like to be honorary members of the group. We're also getting a piece in the ACNR journal to raise awareness with neurologists about us. You could also ask your specialists to get in touch with us if they would also like to be honorary members. And I'm also tying up a few loose ends and asking people who have presented at meetings or have asked for research grants if they would like to be honorary members. It all helps raise awareness of the group, which should help raise awareness to new patients. Many of you will have heard about the bequest which was made to the group from our former chair, David Pearce. We were honoured that David had remembered the group, and we have decided how to use the bequest in order to help members in line with our expectation of David's wishes. So previously we had agreed that the group would cover meeting costs for room hires, and we've now expanded that to include refreshments at meetings as well, which should reduce barriers for people attending meetings. Similarly, the 2021 AGM will be face-to-face and free of charge. It would have been this AGM that was free of charge had it not been for coronavirus. We've also agreed that the group will cover half of holiday booking costs for members at Calvert Trust. And they've got 3 sites in Exmoor, the Lake District and Kielder. And you will have seen a couple of stories in Newslink about how members have had a really good time going there. We've also started up 2 annual awards, one for fundraising and one for raising awareness of HSP. Now, I let you know about these awards in our last newsletter, and we have received a few nominations for each, and I will announce those first awards in just a moment. So, we are happy to receive nominations for next year's awards. So, for fundraising, the amount raised is not important. We're looking to acknowledge the stories behind the fundraising, the effort that the people put into raising money. And for the raising awareness, it's also about those personal stories. Whether it's awareness of HSP, awareness of the group, or just using your own personal HSP story to be positive about disability. And so, with great pleasure, I can say that our award for fundraising for 2020 goes to Peter Bateman. Peter has raised over £10,000 for the group. He started raising money for the group in around 2011, passing the 10,000 mark a year or two ago. His approach was very simple. He put pens and key fobs, each with the support group on, with collection boxes in hotel receptions, golf clubs, and that sort of place. Voluntary donations were requested. Peter kept this up for 8 or 9 years, making regular trips around each to restock and to collect the donations. A really simple plan and really well executed. And the 2020 award for raising awareness of HSP is going to Lily Rice. Lily came to our attention a couple of years ago, being the first female in Europe to complete a wheelchair backflip, and you will have read some of her story in editions of Newslink. Lily was on BBC One a couple of weeks ago, and I encourage you to go and watch her episode of Our Lives called Defying Gravity on the BBC iPlayer. We've given Lily the Raising Awareness Award because she is using her enthusiasm to help youngsters in wheelchairs feel less different from others, and to show that there really is a cool side to having a wheelchair. Her can-do approach reminds me that a lot of the blockers we face are all in our heads. She's a positive force for disability and for HSP, and we wish her good luck in her next WCMX competition. Talking of people making a difference, last year at the AGM, we made Amber our first ambassador for the group, and Amber was really pleased about this. Since the AGM, Amber has had 1 or 2 health issues, which means she's not been able to do as much as she would have liked. However, she also works with the charity Backup, which helps people with spinal cord injury. Amber teaches wheelchair skills, and when she's working for the charity, she has an honorary spinal cord injury herself. And recently, she got to run some of these courses at the Calvert Trust. The courses are great because they help people do more with their wheelchairs, and it helps people to see them as a benefit more than a burden. Amber's other passion is crocheting woolly hats, as she treats her hamster like royalty. I look really forward to hearing what the next year holds for Amber. So, another thing we've been doing is sorting out the committee structure for the group. So we've started off with 4 committees. We do this partly so that our activities are more transparent and accountable, and partly so that we can spread the load of these activities to groups of people rather than individuals. But mostly we've done it so that it becomes obvious where to go when people are seeking help. And I'd like to thank those brave people who have offered to be the first chairs of these committees. So the Meetings Committee provides an umbrella to cover the meetings that we already run and allows those organising the meetings to share information more easily. With any luck, it might make a few more people likely to offer to help to set up new meetings. This committee is chaired by Hilary Croydon and Jane Bennett. The Membership Committee is mainly about welcoming new members to the group and dealing with the membership side of the charity, but it also provides a holding place for other activities that are focused on members. And this committee is chaired by Ian Bennett. The Research Committee is focused on assessing research funding applications made to the group and also to try to understand what is going on in the world of HSP research, with the aims of reporting that information back to you, and we hope to be able to steer the direction of HSP research towards those activities which will help the members directly. This committee is chaired by me, and the fundraising committee is a new venture for us, with the aim of being a little more coordinated in our fundraising, which will include applying for funding from various trusts and other organisations, so that it can help members and to help steer the direction of HSP research. And this committee is chaired by Rachel Mortimer Holdsworth. If you feel that you might be able to help the group on one of these committees, then drop me a line or go and talk directly to the committee chairs. Talking of research, we finished our trial run of our new grant application process recently, where we scored each application against our questions which they had answered. We had 3 applications for funding in this round, and and the headlines are given for those on the screen. I'm pleased to say that we agreed to fund each application, and we'll be keeping in touch with each project as it progresses, and we can keep you all informed about how that's going on. And you can see that there is a common thread amongst all of these about biomarkers. So, lastly for me, I'm going to say we're after help for the group. On the website, you can find a page which is much more explicit about the different tasks that we want help with. My focus in the next year is to find successors to John and Dave, who are both soon looking to stand down from the Treasurer and Secretary roles that they have successfully held for some time. People do not have to be members to help. I encourage you all to have a look at the page and see what we're after. You could offer your own help, or you could ask your friends, your family, people you know, or people you work with. If you're not sure about asking people, please drop me a line and I am happy to ask them on your behalf. And I'm also happy to talk to people who might not be certain about this. And so that marks the end of my chair report. And so the next thing we're moving on to is the Secretary report. So now I'm going to hand over to Dave Harris. And Dave, you will need to unmute yourself in order to talk.
That seems to have worked at my end. Is that working?
Yep, that's working here. Super. Oh, hang on. No, wrong way. There we are. Back to you, Dave.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Before I start these 2 topics, I just wanted to record the fact that we have had 2 apologies received for the meeting from Leslie Brennan and from Jane and Philippa Burrell, and I'll record those. Right. Over the year, our trustees have had 4 meetings, and because of the coronavirus situation, 3 of these were via Zoom, and I think it's fair to say we did find them easier because of the fact that there was no need to travel, which made the day of the meeting available to do other things as well. Right. Over the year, 4 members have applied for grants. These all were for mobility aids, although as people who have been members for a period know, we're quite prepared to consider things wider than mobility aids if we think it helps people overcome the effects of HSP. In total, £3,117 were approved for payment of these grants. Okay, that brings my bit to an end, Adam.
Super. Thank you very much, Dave. That's really good. And next, we're going to move over to Membership Secretary. And if I can get my screen to share properly, there we go. So now I'm going to hand over to Ian. And Ian, you'll need to unmute yourself in order to speak.
I think I've done that. Can you hear me?
I certainly can.
Right. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'll try to go through this quickly. We currently have 340 members who are all paid up. And thank you to all of those of you who need no reminder to renew your subscriptions annually or you've set up standing orders to do this. You can roughly see where you're all located just by looking at the red dots on the map on the screen. I'm currently in the process of doing the unpleasant part of my job, and that's chasing up about 50 members whose subscriptions are now overdue. If everyone had paid up, we'd be very close to 400 members. Adam's already touched on this. We have 98 honorary members, consisting mainly of consultants and others from the medical profession. I'd really like to thank Mitesh, who, using his medical connections, has done some great work here in developing new contacts for us. If you suspect that we're not in close contact with your HSP consultant, please get in touch with either Mitesh or myself. Adam mentioned our new website earlier, and if you haven't seen it, make sure you have a good look. And like Adam said, I'm sure you'll agree that Jenny Preston's done an absolutely amazing job with it. Since the website went live on June the 20th, we've already recruited 4 new members they've used the new online application form. This is a very encouraging indication that we'll now receive an increased number of applications. We now have a membership committee, again Adam's touched on this, which comprises of myself, John Mason and Mitesh. John manages our database, which of course the membership secretary uses a lot to register all our members and keep their details updated. As treasurer and database manager, John works closely with me in a number of areas, and I'd like to thank both John and Sonia for all their help and support. Mitesh will gradually be taking over my role as membership secretary, and we aim to complete this process in a couple of months' time. Remember to let us know of any changes of contact details so we can keep our records up to date. If your subs are overdue, please arrange payment. And also, if you currently receive your newsletter by snail mail, but would be happy to receive it by email, please let us know, as this saves us a lot of money. Talking of a newsletter, thanks for all the amazing contributions from the past, but please keep them coming in so we can keep it up to a high standard. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you just want to chat, I'm always on the end of the telephone. And I'd just like to end this by thanking Adam for all his hard work. Since he took over from me as chairman, I think it was 2 years ago now, I'm sure it's obvious to you, but I think he's taken the group to the next level. So thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Ian. That's super. Okay, and then from Ian, we're going to hand over next to Treasury Report, and if I can get that button clicked there, and now I'm going to hand over to John Mason. Are you there, John?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Super. Yeah, we can.
I'm going to look at the accounts, income first of all, then expenditure, and then looking at the balance sheet. So the first report is on the first page is on the screen. Subscriptions this year, 4,200 and 4,200. There's a typo in there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is a typo. Sorry about that.
300 and so members at £15 a time. That's in line. Donations and legacies. David Pearce request is something that is very unusual this year. You can see this large sum of £86,704 that came in from David's estate. That's made a big difference to our income this year. General fundraising, 9,000 odd. The conference, those are fees that we charged last year for lunches. And restricted fundraising, that's income for projects that where the donor has specifically asked that the money goes towards research. So our total income last year, £107,269.86. Now, how did we spend our money? Next slide, please, Rachel. Lovely, thank you. Administration costs, things like subscriptions to European and worldwide HSP bodies. Trustees' expenses, those are mainly our meeting expenses, which we expect to go down with Zoom, of course. That's a great benefit of Zoom. Conference meetings, mainly the AGM, 2,700. General fundraising expenses, we have to pay various organisations fees, organisations like Virgin Money and Just Giving, they charge us something to collect money. The newsletter expenses, printing and postage, of course. Postage is a huge part of that. Grants to members, we've mentioned those already, of 3,117. And restricted fundraising expenses, again, costs associated with raising money that had been requested to go to research. So our total expenditure last year, £11,349.28. And our next slide, please, Rachel. So the balance sheet. The balance sheet is a snapshot at the end of the year. Whereas the profit and loss, income and expenditure is the flow of money over a 12-month period, the balance sheet is a photo at a particular moment of the year. So at the start of the year, we had an opening balance of 41,000 from last year. We've had our income that we've seen earlier of 107,000, expenditure of 11,000. So our surplus for the year is a massive £95,920, £920.58. So our balance is 136,000 allocated to the general fund, which is where we have no restrictions on how we spend the money, £136,098.12, and the restricted fund, where we are required to spend on research £862. But I will point out that where we're going to fund research, we've had those three research grants come in. We will be moving money from the general fund into the restricted fund and then out to the research organisations. And I should be asking for really any questions. Next slide, please, Rachel. Yes, as always, my thanks due to Sonia for her work on the accounts. She does a bit of work every day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year on the accounts, so her work is invaluable. And to Chris Harvey for examining the accounts, and both give their time generously and both give their time, of course, freely. So we should all give our thanks to those two for their contribution to the group. Now, any questions from anybody? I'll take any questions. Fortunately, everybody's muted, so you can't offer any questions.
Yeah, if anyone's got questions, pop them in the chat pane and we'll pick them up at the end. Fine. Thank you very much, John. I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you to David, to Ian and to John for the valuable work that they do for the group. They're really important roles and these three do them excellently. Now, we have now finished all of the reports and it's time for us to get back to asking you all to vote. So it's time for our second vote. John's presented the 2019 accounts and you've had the opportunity to read them on the website. Can I ask you all to indicate if you accept the 2019 accounts? And the votes are on screen. They're coming in nice and quickly. Look at that. We've got almost everybody has voted. That's good. Rachel, do you want to share those results with us? There we are. As you can see, everybody has accepted the 2019 accounts. So that's wonderful. Thank you very much. And now it's time for the third vote. So you've heard about all of our activities in the last year. And let me just pop that down. Heard about all of the activities in the last year and you've had the opportunity to read about them on the website and all over the place. So can we pop the third poll up, Rachel? Can I ask if you indicate to accept if you indicate the 2019 report? Lovely. I think that's good, Rachel. Can we have that one up? There we can go. As we can see, everybody has voted yes, that they accept the 2019 report. So that is super. Thank you very much. And that is the easy part. The next part, if I can get my click in the right place, we're talking about election of trustees. So you may recall that back in the 2018 AGM, we changed the constitution. There's a lot of long words in here. We introduced trustees standing for 3-year terms. So back then, Ian and Dave stood for 1-year terms, and they were re-elected last year. John and myself stood for 2-year terms, and now it is our choice to stand again. And that marks the end of the short trustee terms. Mitesh Patel has put himself forward to be a trustee during the year, and all trustees agreed that he would be a great help for the group. So he is also standing for election. So, Rachel, can we pop up the first election, which is in alphabetical order for me? Can I ask you all to vote if you wish to elect me as a trustee? And I can see the votes coming in nicely. I think that will do for us. Yep. So as you can see, we've got more yeses than nos. So that means I am a trustee again. Thank you very much. And let's have next, it's time for the second trustee election, which is for John Mason. Can I ask you if you vote for John Mason as a trustee? And the votes are coming in very nicely. I think we're good for that, Rachel. Do you want to share the results? There we are. And as you can see, John has been elected a trustee again. So that is super. Thank you. And then lastly, can we have our last one, which is, can I ask you to, if you're going to vote for Mitesh Patel as a trustee? And everybody's voting nice and quickly, which is wonderful. That is super. Rachel, do you want to pop that one up as well? And as we can see, we've got nice there. We can see that all of us have been elected as trustees. So I'd like to thank you all for voting. So I am very pleased to be re-elected for another term as chair. I'm also pleased, as Ian touched on earlier, to say that now that Mitesh has been voted in as a trustee, he's in for a term, and he's going to take over from Ian from the membership secretary role later in the year. So that marks the end of the agenda business for the AGM, which has been our first proper digital event. I've got 2 further items, next year's AGM and details of the presentations over the summer. But before we get to those, I'd like to thank you all for the time that you've taken to come to our AGM, and I look forward to chatting with you afterwards. If anyone's got any business to raise at the AGM, can they make themselves known now? Now then, how do I see the old chat pane? Where's chat? Rachel, have we got anything come in on the chat pane?
There's no questions on there at the moment, other than Mike has actually raised a very lovely question, is how many people that are at this meeting at the moment would perhaps not have come to a physical meeting in Birmingham, which is an interesting question, I think.
It is a very interesting question. Perhaps once we get into chat time at the end, we can find out who has come today who wouldn't have come if we were stood in Birmingham. So that'd be very good to know. So therefore, I don't think there is any other business. So I'm pleased to say that as we've heard about from the David Pearce bequest, we are making next year's AGM free of charge. It will be back at Tally Ho in Birmingham, where we would have been today. And I hope to see many of you there in person next year. Part of our discussions coming up in the next few months amongst the trustees is to work out if we can get some kind of digital version of the AGM going as well. I quite like to be able to do that so that we can have it face-to-face in person and get some kind of digital element in there as well. But we'll see how that goes. And so the last thing is to talk about the presentations. So normally, as you know, at the AGM, we have a bunch of presentations afterwards. I had asked 4 people to present at this year's AGM, which we would have done in Birmingham, and 3 of them have agreed to take part in digital events over the summer. We'll send out a programme of links after I've spoken to Calvert Trust. Our contact at Calvert Trust has been furloughed, and I think they're back next week, so we can try and sort out the details of that one. So on Saturday, the 25th of July, Andrew and Emma are going to be talking about their work on cholesterol processing, which was published in the neurology journal Brain last year. And that came from a PhD which we part funded and from their historical studies that led towards this. They will also talk about their plans for the future that we're also supporting, both with you offering to take part in their studies and through our funding towards another PhD student. On Saturday, the 1st of August, Channa will be talking about the work that him and his team undertake in Sheffield, looking at some of the insights and learning that they've gained from their approaches to working with a large cohort of HSP patients. He will also outline the type of work that they are looking to cover in the future, including that from the PhD student that we're part funding. And on Tuesday, the 11th of August, Geeta will be talking about physical activities in rare conditions project, which Ian and I have had some involvement with, and where that is going in the next stage. She will also cover more general aspects of rehabilitation and the importance of physical activity for those of us with HSP. So, thank you all for taking part in this event. If there are people watching who are not members of the support group, have a think about if you'd like to join our friendly community. We always welcome new faces. You can apply through membership, as Ian has hinted, through our website. So, there we go. Thank you very much, everybody.